In this lesson, we're going to be reviewing the input section or the customization panel for ATS version 5. Once you're done with this video, you should be able to know 1, what every single button on your ATS screen does, and 2, how you can customize it to your own liking. To get into the input section is very simple. Either right-click on your charts and go ahead and click into Indicator List, highlight ATS version 5, and then finally edit, and you should get this box that shows up. Another easy way to get into it is simply find some of your candles, go ahead and double click on them, and your inputs panel should pop right up. Now that we're in the inputs panel, we'll go through and review exactly what we're going to be covering. Candle settings, ATS framework, which just simply refers to some of the boxes and lines, institutional levels, which we'll get into with institutional mode, order block projections, also associated with institutional mode, ATS dashboard settings, which will show up right here, but we do not have it active currently, money management settings, which refers to these green lines right here and the calculations that you can find there, ATS trader commitment, which is not active but will turn on, and then finally general ATS version 5 settings, where we've chosen to house some of the creature comforts and quality of life upgrades that we've got inside of ATS version 5. To get started, let's go ahead and take a look at candle type. Currently, we've got the proprietary ATS version 5 hybrid candles up. What the hybrid candles are a mix of Heikin-Ashi, which is an average of the overall direction a candle is taking, and it assigns it a color. In our case, it would be blue for up, yellow for down. So the Heikin-Ashi calculation applied to a standard candle body. So let's go ahead and change that so that we can see the difference. If we change to a standard candle, this is going to be what many people are very familiar with. If a candle opens and then closes lower, it's yellow. If it opens and closes a little bit higher, then it's blue. If we go ahead and jump back over into our settings, so we'll change standard to Heikin-Ashi, and now we've got the Heikin-Ashi smoothed out candle bodies that can be helpful for just sticking in one overall direction. However, we would with the HA hybrid candle. As we continue down the list, we can see we've got bare candlestick body, which is yellow, and bull candlestick body, which is deep sky blue. Those simply refer to the candle colors, and you can go ahead and change those to whatever you'd like. Working down a little bit further, we've got ATS framework settings. So as we go through here, there are quite a bit of options as far as colors and showing whatever you would like to see. The first thing I'd like to point out is these minor box color, major box color, major expansion line color, and then you'll see those sort of repeated throughout the entire list. What those refer to are the minor box color. You'll be able to change those to whatever you'd like. The major box color, you can change those. Finally, the minor master pattern origination point boxes, you can change those. And then one more box, we've got the major master pattern origination point box color. So you'll be able to change the outlined color as well as the box color and the expansion lines associated with them. For the next thing we'll cover, we'll take a look at HTF volatility line. What that basically means is the higher time frame volatility line. We won't get into the exact workings of this. You'll have to find that in another video, going through how to use the actual software. But granted to say that if you change that from hide to show, then you'll be greeted with the high volatility or higher time frame volatility lines on your charts, which you can see here as these red dotted lines. If you'd like to change the colors on those, that is an option that is available to you. Working down our list, we can see the next thing we come to is liquidity lines. So right here, we can see there's an option to show or hide them. Of course, those are these yellow dotted lines and blue dotted lines. We can show them or hide them. We can change the style from dot into dash, dash dot, dash dot dot, and tune them to your liking and whatever shows up the best for you. You can also change the colors. To keep things making sense as far as the methodology, we would recommend that when a buy candle goes up, it hits the liquidity line of the opposite direction, because that's essentially what they represent, which is stop levels. But of course, you can change them to whatever you'd like. Right here, we've got what is called expansion leg number. If we go ahead and turn that on, you'll see that as price breaks away out of an expansion or into expansion out of a contraction box, it will actually count the legs of that box. This can be very, very handy for those of you that are new, that aren't quite sure how to look at the legs of expansion and exactly what to expect with them. They can also be very handy if you get further into an expansion. Then they can give you a little bit of insight as to when it's likely to break, because the further you get along into expansion, we know that we're typically going to be closer to the profit-taking trend phase. Moving back in with the expansion leg numbers, you can also change the size of that number if you're having a little bit of trouble seeing them. Now moving down, we can see we've got dynamic value line. So let's go ahead and get this going. Again, we will not be talking about how to use this, but just that this is how you will be able to turn it on. So this is our dynamic value. It's basically a value line that tracks along the candles and can help you ride in trades, among some other things. So that is how you would turn that on or off. If you're having a little bit of trouble seeing the dynamic value line, you can always change it right here with this. And then right here, we've got dynamic value transition color. This refers to when dynamic value changes. We've got these small white dots. They're a little bit hard to see up against the gray, but you can change them to whatever you'd like. And then this is not something that you'll see too often, and it has to happen in the moment, but there's a particular warning that it will come up with dynamic value at times, and you can change that here. Right here, we've got dynamic value dot size, which of course refers to these dots. Just when dynamic value changes from one side of the candles to the other, you can change that here if you'd like to make it a little bit bigger. Moving along, the next section that we're going to take a look at is institutional levels, or IL settings. Now, all of these options refer to what happens when you hit this institutional mode button. So let's go ahead and do so. And you can see that as soon as price ticks and we get a new piece of data from our feed, that we should update and get all of our institutional levels and order block projections. There they are. Now keep in mind, institutional mode is not currently compatible with HA candles. So Heikinashi candlesticks in institutional mode are not compatible. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the options now that we've got institutional mode up. The next section that we're going to cover is institutional level settings. What these refer to is what happens when you hit the institutional mode button found by default at the bottom of your chart. It's basically referring to some of the colors through here, but we'll go ahead and cover them. First one would be institutional levels. If you would like these institutional levels to be up without you hitting the institutional mode button found on your charts, you can go ahead and change this from hide to show. Institutional line style refers to the lines that build the institutional level blocks. Aqua for bullish institutional line candle color and bearish institutional line candle color simply refer to the color change that takes place on the candles going up or down. This is where you can change those. For bullish intent color block and bearish intent block color, these refer to the actual institutional blocks. So you can change those colors here as well. Institutional mode toggle button, if you find that you're not really getting much use out of institutional mode, or for some reason you'd like to hide this toggle button on your charts, that's where you can go ahead and do so. On the flip side, if you find you really like institutional mode and don't want to have to toggle it on or off, you can set it to on by default and then turn it off by hitting the button whenever you'd like. The next section that we're going to cover is order block projection settings. Now, order block projections refer to these red dotted lines with this measurement here at the top. Again, we won't go into the exact details of how to use these, but suffice it to say that you can adjust them from right here. If you find that you want to use institutional mode or certain aspects of it without toggling institutional mode on, such as the order block projections, you can go ahead and toggle those to always show, regardless of institutional mode being active or not, right here with show or hide. Underneath are pretty basic color options. If you'd like to change the colors to whatever you'd like that maybe fit your theme, you can go ahead and do so here. And then finally, the font size, if you'd like to make an adjustment right there. The next section that we'll cover is the ATS dashboard settings. Let's go ahead and toggle this on so we can see what exactly it holds. So if you change that from hide to show, then you'll be greeted with this new box down here. So let's go ahead and cover some of the information in it. The first thing is pretty straightforward. Spread. So that is the spread that the market currently has when you're inside of or looking to place a trade. Pip value refers to the size of the pip taken into account when doing some of these calculations, which we'll get into in a moment. Margin requirement refers to the amount of margin that that pip value needs in order to place a trade. Open positions value refers to the amount that you are either up or down in any open positions you've currently got. You can see I've got one right here that I'm going to show and use in an example here as we get further into the inputs, and that position is currently up 0.05 cents. And then finally, we've got session profit and loss. So as you go and open or close trades, you'll find that this will keep track of all of that for you. Now to dig into the actual settings with the ATS dashboard, we've got a few very simple tweaks that you can do to it. One, you can obviously show or hide. If you'd like to keep it up on your chart, we would recommend resaving your template with the dashboard up, so you don't need to come in and enable it or disable it each and every time that you want to load it up on a chart. The next thing would be text color. If you have a white background, then this is almost a mandatory change to change that to black or whatever color you'd like. We've got font size for the titles. We've got text size for some of the other text in there. And then lot size and risk background color refers to the background of these boxes right here, and then the text color inside of those boxes. And then we've also got session profit and loss reset period. Currently, it's set to default by 1 day, but if you'd like to keep track of your entire week or month and have it reset on either the first or Sunday when the market opens, you can do so right here. The next section we're going to talk about is money management settings. Now, the money management and the ATS dashboard are slightly intertwined, so bear with me while we go through and explain this section and pay extra close attention to exactly how it works. So the first few options are pretty straightforward. We've got money management. You can either choose to show or hide these actual numbers right here. Money management color, you can change the colors. Font size, you can change the size of the font. Line style, you can change it from a solid line to dotted or dashed or whatever you'd like. Line thickness makes it a little bit easier or harder to see depending on your preferences. Now the next four, default lot size, default percentage, starting balance, and max account drawdown, will be adjustable, but keep in mind that that is not adjustable while the dashboard is currently up. These numbers will override what is back here in the inputs panel. So let's go ahead and cover that right now, what that means. So to change these numbers, you can actually do so on the fly. If you want to change your lot size and change the calculation, you can change your lot size like so. So I went ahead and made a quick adjustment to lot size and risk percentage. Now the market has updated. We had a few ticks, so it might take a second to actually go through, especially if the market is slow. So now we've got at 10% or a 10 lot size, this is 10% of our account value. And that would be the boundaries of it for long or short. Now, if we go back into our settings and scroll down to money management settings, now we can go ahead and hide the dashboard for the remainder of this tutorial section. So let's go ahead and hide that, and notice that these numbers go back to the defaults. So let's go ahead and take a look at what those defaults are. Right here, we've got default lot size to calculate. So it's currently set to 1 lot, but you can of course change it to whatever lot size you're currently running. Default percentage risk to calculate, if we've got it to 2, then 2% of this $100,000 demo account would be $2,000. Again, you can adjust that to whatever you would like. We do typically recommend that you don't lose more than about 1% per trade though. For the next two settings, we've got starting account balance override and max account drawdown percentage. What these mean and allow you to do is adjust these risk parameters based on how much you're willing to lose of your max account. To give a quick example, if you were to take a funding evaluation challenge and you had 5% that you were able to risk of $100,000, then the calculations based off of that total $100,000 wouldn't really make sense in this context, since you can only lose $5,000 total. So the way that we can go ahead and compensate for that is by typing in $100,000 as our starting balance, and then typing in our max account drawdown percentage at 5%. So once we go ahead update that, it will actually show up about the same that it is now because we're pretty close to $100,000, but it will then at that point calculate this number differently based on what you're actually willing to lose in the account. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And you can see that now we've changed it as if there was $5,000 in the account, which again, if you are planning on not going and blowing the entire account in the event that you're trading it, then this is how you would adjust for what you're actually willing to lose as opposed to the entire account value. For the next settings we're going to take a look at, we've got ATS Trader Commitment version 1. What Trader Commitment does, we won't get into the specifics of how it works here, but you can go ahead and change it to show and then change the size of the dots. So right here is ATS Trader Commitment. We can see it's one of our volume influence indicators that just kind of gives you a sense of the ebb and flow of the market. Getting back into the settings, we can see that we've got a few things related to them. For these next color options that you see under ATS Trader Commitment, you'll notice that we've got real-time and historical commitment color. Now, what does that mean? When you load up historical dots, they will show on candles that they did show up on, but they're not going to be quite as accurate as if you see them build live for a number of reasons that have to do with the way that data comes in. But just suffice it to know that if you have a dot that shows up while you're looking at the chart, it will show up this color. And if you load a chart that has historical dots, they'll show up one of these two colors right here. Moving ahead, we've got past trades, profit and loss box default. So by default, we've got this set to show. What this does is it shows this button right here. Now I left this trade in so that we can use it as a quick example to actually show. I'm going to go ahead and close this trade out. Now this is going to be very small, so let me go ahead and change over to a 1-minute chart so we can see it a little bit better. So that trade ended up actually being a negative, but again, just put it in for demonstration purposes. If it's a negative box, it will end up having a reddish hue or whatever you set it to. If it was a positive trade, then it would end up being this color right here that we've got highlighted on the box itself. So going back into the settings, you can see that because this was a negative trade that we ended up taking, we have negative trade box color, and it will show the entry point that we got in at, how far it went against us or for us, and then a line going to exactly where we got out. Keep in mind that this box may not show if you get in and out on the exact same candle that you're viewing it on. So if you've got maybe a daily chart, it may, and you close your trade out in a day, you're not going to see this box because there's no separation from the candle you got in and out on. If you'd like to change the colors of any of these, you can do so here. So teal would change the color of the positive box as well as this button. White will allow you to change this line connecting your entry and exit point. And then as we covered, negative trade box color will change what color shows up when in the event that you take a negative trade. Moving along, we can see we've also got an option for toggle buttons. So that will allow you to turn these on or off, but still keep the settings on or off. So you can keep your trade boxes up, but just get rid of the toggle buttons in your way. Right here, you can change the size of these toggle buttons. And then right here with toggle button location, you can change them to multiple different places on your screen if you maybe have something else up here that you'd like to watch. Moving ahead, we've got general ATS version 5 settings. As I alluded at the very beginning of this video, this is where most of your quality of life is going to be. Right here, our first option is candle countdown timer. That refers to this candle countdown right here. So this will count down until we're going to get a new timer. Right now, we've got a 1-minute chart. So every time a new candle shows up, it will count down from 59 down to 0 until we get a new candle. Keep in mind that this number updates with each new tick, so if it ever looks like it's frozen, that typically just means the market is not moving very much. So it can also kind of be at a glance volatility or data flow coming in. Right here, we've got candle countdown timer color. If you don't like the color that it's currently at, you can change it to whatever you'd like right there. Font size will allow you to change the size of the font. And then we get into historical data to load in periods. Now, what this refers to is how far back ATS will go. ATS is a very data-heavy indicator. So by default, we've chosen to go back 2,500 bars. As I scroll back, you'll see us start to run into the limit of those 2,500 bars right here. So this is 2,500 candles off of our leading edge, which is right here. If you'd like to change that, you can do so by entering a different number in. So right here I went ahead and specified 500 periods. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and you'll see that we should get back to the very end much faster. Our base recommendation with historical data is to mostly leave it alone, but dependent on your machine and your internet connection, you can adjust it from there. We find that it's really best not to go too much past about 6,000 to 7,000 candles. At that point, you'll see some significant delays and lag in the software. So if, for instance, you put it to 10,000, it will probably cause some issues for even some really high-end computers and great internet connections. So we'd recommend not to go too much past about 5,000 or 6,000, and then obviously adjust it to your own preferences and whatever you'd like to do, or whatever works best for your own computer. Now the benefits of changing this number is that you'll get more data, including more liquidity lines. So liquidity lines work off as far back as they're built. If you'd like to get more liquidity lines, then you can always extend that data or just get the software up and running on what you're seeing a little bit further back. Now if we move ahead, we can see we've got crosshair sync toggle button. So what that does is toggle on the crosshair sync, which you can find as this crosshair in the bottom left corner of your chart. Now let's dig into what that button actually does. If we go ahead and click out of it, and then pull up another chart with the same pair on it. So in this case, we've got euro dollar on the 4 hour and euro dollar on the 5 minute. You can go ahead and click that, and then it will show you with a crosshair where you are in each of these candle sets. So this can be very useful for looking at different reactions and getting a sense as to what the market is doing, sort of a magnifying glass into some of your higher time frames. And you can of course toggle that on or off just by hitting this button on each chart. Digging back into the settings, we can go down and then look at crosshair auto navigate to current time on all charts. So what this does, we have it off by default, but there might be certain situations where it could be useful. What it basically does is if you highlight over your 4-hour chart with this set on it, then it will automatically make your 5-minute or your lower time frame jump to where that is in the candle. We would recommend doing this with your historical data set to a very high number, because if you go back too far on a higher time frame, then it may not skip all the way back. This is sort of a niche setting, so we wouldn't really recommend that you dig into it too much unless it sounds immediately useful to you. For the next setting, we've got crosshair toggle button location, so you can change this to other positions on your chart, very similar to we had to these toggle buttons right here. Right here we've got crosshair toggle key. What that does is when you've got your chart open, as opposed to going and hitting the crosshair button, we have it set to T by default, but you can change it whatever you'd like. Just go ahead and click T and it will toggle the crosshair on or off. Moving on, we've got crosshair color. By default it's set to magenta, but you can change that to whatever you'd like. Crosshair line style set to solid, but you can change it to dashes or dots. Vertical lines on all charts. So what that means is that you can look at two different pairs and look at the same time frame, and the crosshairs will not sync up on horizontal with price, but they will sync up vertically on timing, so that you can look at two different markets and see the exact same time on both of them. And then finally we come into chart symbol syncing. What that refers to is this chain icon down in the bottom left corner of our chart. So currently it's turned to active, but we've got no group. Let's go ahead and turn it off very quickly to see the difference. So we turned it off on this chart and that disappears. If we go ahead and turn it back to active and then change our group, we'll go ahead for this example and choose purple. We'll hit OK and nothing happens. If we go ahead and change our pair, it just changes as normal, but nothing really happens. The magic is when we go into another pair. So let's go ahead and change this to purple as well. And now we've got these two charts synced up. Now when we go ahead and change pairs, it will change pairs on each of your synced up charts. So this can be very handy. It's handy when you've got two charts, but it's especially handy when you've got 3, 4, or even 5 charts loaded up. So of course, if we go into the settings, we've got a number of of different options available. We've got green, blue, yellow, red, purple, or orange. And then no group is you've got it active, so you just need to change it, but it's not assigned to any particular group at that moment. So that basically wraps up all of the input settings for ATS version 5. We hope that you had some value in this, and if you have any deeper questions, we would encourage you to send over an email to support@tradeats.com, and we'll be able to help walk through any problems that you run into. For now, take care.